Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for being with us this afternoon. To make a long story short, a few months ago, I met Moukheiber in Paris, and our initial idea was to organize some sort of roundtable to discuss the CEDRE conference. And then a few months later, McKinsey published its famous or infamous report on how to revamp the Lebanese economy. And we decided to turn this event into something a bit bigger, to discuss the McKinsey report, to discuss the CEDRE process, and then to start to think together about a roadmap for fiscal and economic reform in Lebanon. I would like to thank all those who contributed to organizing this event. Lina and Karim Moukheiber, of course, Ziad Miati, Hoda Touma, Michel Aftimos. It is more important than ever today to reflect about the future of Lebanon, not necessarily through a report written by foreign consultants, but by tapping into Lebanese expertise. There is a long tradition in Lebanon of trying to think of the future. There were economists, social scientists, a few politicians who tried to do that in the 1950s and 1960s. Gabriel Mnassa, Maurice Jmeil, Mariam's grandfather, was also a visionary, Hassan Msharrafi, Hassan Saab, many others tried to think about the future of the Lebanese economy. This entire evaluation job and reflections on the future did not start with McKinsey. Actually, more than 20 years ago, when Naamat's father, Georges Frame, was in government, he commissioned a monitor consulting group that also started a very wide reflection on the Lebanese economy. And years later, we are still trying to figure out credible socioeconomic policies for Lebanon. So earlier this year, Lebanon found out actually 6 months ago that McKinsey was hired to revamp the economy. Many people were skeptical at the beginning. They said we'll pay them a fortune and we'll end up with the umpteenth economic study with the same old unimplemented recommendations. However, to put things in perspective, the plan, which has cost $1.3 million, it seems like a lot of money, but to put its cost in perspective, it's only 15 minutes of electricity subsidies. We lose about $2 billion on electricity. So I think it was useful to spend some money to think about the future of our economy. Now, when it comes to the recipe itself, how transformative it is, our first panel will discuss it. The McKinsey report has triggered a lot of emotions. On the very first day, Walid Jumblat called it an insult to the Lebanese. He said those who commissioned it were donkeys and that it will be completely useless. And yet, when the report came out, many people felt that there were some interesting ideas worth discussing. And I want to point out that we have invited the main persons who worked on this report and who commissioned it. They could not join us. We invited Minister Raed Khouri, and we invited Mazen Najjar, one of the key consultants who worked on the McKinsey. He called me back just yesterday saying he would have loved to make it, but unfortunately he's unable. I told him he would always be welcome to present his findings here at USG and to discuss this. So our first panel will immediately start with the McKinsey report. It will be chaired by Ziad Hayek. Ziad is one of the most dedicated public servants in Lebanon. I witnessed the fact that he spent hours in countless meetings, often useless meetings, to try to mobilize Lebanese civil society. Maybe because he was such a dedicated public servant, he ended up frustrated with the current atmosphere, and he has announced his resignation last week. So he is a free man. Thank you for being with us, and I'm sure his expertise is badly needed. So Catherine will say, before Lina Moukheiber says a few words to introduce the Elias Moukheiber Foundation, and I think it was an excellent idea to create this institute. I was not privileged to know Elias in person, but when he passed away, his premature death, I remember that everyone in town, we had many mutual friends, they were all shocked. by his early death. And I think it's an excellent idea to perpetuate his memory through a think tank that will continue to reflect on important public policy issues. And USG is delighted to be associated with that. So Lina will say a few words. So that I do not come back here, I will rapidly introduce the panel. So I said Ziad, as you all know, was in charge of public-private partnerships. He's a tireless advocate for civil society. Namat, it's more complicated to introduce him because Namat is an entrepreneur, is an industrialist. Namat is a dreamer, first and foremost. This is why I like him, a dreamer and a doer. At the time of growing disconnect between finance and the real economy, disconnect between Main Street and Wall Street, as they say in the US, Namat is one of those who really try to help the economy, the real economy, by creating jobs. He's an investor. He is the leading private employer in Lebanon through Indefco. If I'm not mistaken, more than 12,000 or 13,000 work for Indefco in Lebanon. Yes, of course, but it's very important because we live in a country where we have a lot of finance guys, a lot of speculators, and what we need is investors and people who create jobs. But as I said, first and foremost, Namat is a dreamer and a doer, and he has worked extensively on these issues, and he wrote extensively about the Lebanese economy. Charles Arbid heads a very important institution, the Socioeconomic Council, and in the past 30 years, people were expecting this institution, ever since the Taif Accords were agreed upon, to play a fundamental role. And in the past few months, Charles has published very important publications, and he also took an active part in helping the McKinsey team to draft their report. And finally, Samir Nasser, thank you for being with us. Samir is an economist, he's a consultant, he worked in the Gulf and in Lebanon, and he is perfectly placed to provide a conclusion for this panel. Thank you for being with us. I cede the floor to Lina Moukheiber, the president of the Elias Moukheiber Institute.
Hello, I would like to start my introduction by quoting Professor Salim Dakash from last night's closing note made on the occasion of St. Joseph Feast, the patron saint of this notable university. Pardon my French. For those of you who attended the ceremony last night, he ended up his speech by saying, "L'Université Saint-Joseph est plus qu'un simple espace de liberté, c'est un sanctuaire de la liberté souveraine. Contre l'enceinte de l'USJ, toute politique liberticide viendra à se briser en 1000 morceaux." Professor Salim Dakash. I will translate to English. St. Joseph University is more than just a simple stretch of freedom. It is a sanctuary for sovereignty and freedom. Any attempts to destroy liberty will come crashing into 1,000 pieces against the shielded walls of St. Joseph University. I think the tone of this quotation is brilliant, and this is what this university is all about. So we're very proud of this. So on your feast, dear Karim, we wish you and the university many years of resilience and prosperity in a free and democratic Lebanon. I stand before you with pride on the grounds of this eminent university that generated over the past century and a half scores of prominent Lebanese and foreign politicians, legislators, writers, religious leaders, historians, intellectuals, and the list goes on. Historically, the Institute of Political Science at St. Joseph University has always played a significant role in bringing together distinguished scholars to discuss and challenge the establishment. The Elias Moukheiber Institute for Lebanon, recently founded to perpetuate the intellectual legacy of Elias Moukheiber, is a safe haven for debating how authorities could safeguard constitutional rights and civil liberties. By means of quick introduction, and thank you, Karim, for having mentioned Elias in the beginning, for those who don't know Elias, he graduated from this very university, from the law school 22 years ago. And he obtained, before that, he obtained a bachelor's degree in government study from the College of William and Mary in the United States of America. Both institutes are honored to have this opportunity today to discuss two cornerstones that frame Lebanon's upcoming 10 years challenge, for those who have tried it on Facebook, hopefully with a lighter and happier economic facelift by the year 2029. Hence, the title of today's workshop, Lebanon in Search of Credible Socioeconomic Policies, becomes a rightful call for action to every Lebanese citizen, driven by the economic consequences of CEDRE, and we will discuss them at length this evening. Our national duty requires a fair assessment of the current situation as described in the McKinsey report and its implications on Lebanon. You can see here the cover of this 1,700 pages long report that has an executive summary of 150 pages. But you all know that the first condition to making any change plausible in Lebanon is changing the existing mindset and leadership. To expect the newly formed government to take this document as a roadmap for a better country is, in my humble opinion, an unreachable dream. Given the massive official commitment to choose to endorse CEDRE, searching for keys to unlockable doors, or again, unlocking some fire exits, remains the critical duty for each person of conscience. The anticipated economic impact on the under 35 generation deserves our careful attention and responsible decision making. We owe it to ourselves and foremost to our children who will bear the brunt of today's engagements. As such, we are honored to host experts who will enlighten our thinking process over the risks and benefits of endorsing the McKinsey proposals and/or CEDRE for Lebanon. When I was thinking about CEDRE and the McKinsey report, something funny came to my mind that I would like to share with you, which is the following slide. And for those of you who recall this game, it was a mastermind game, and this is for the, this is the pre-computer generation. So people like Tanya Assis will not know it, you know the master, okay. But for people of our generation, it was an incredible game. And if you go to the second slide, please. The second slide says, Mastermind is described as a code-breaking game that helps develop deductive reasoning and logic by requiring players to deduce secret combinations of colors with minimal clues. This is how I felt when I read the executive summary of the McKinsey report. I am sorry to tell you this, but I really hope that the panelists tonight will be in defense of this report and of the set proposals. Thank you very much.